All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, where I learned this truth from, and I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Today, Monday, October 1st, 2023, Missile Monday, and, I have this article from the New York Times, and it says, Russia may be planning to test a nuclear-powered missile. So I'm just gonna, go into this article a little bit, bring out a couple of scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And as we know, the world is pretty much on the brink of World War III, but we know that, the prophecy of Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, the mark of the beast, and also the time of Jacob's trouble, has to come to pass before this war happens, Slakia. So it says, visual evidence from a remote base in the Arctic shows launch preparations mirroring those that preceded earlier tests. This was published earlier, 5:01 a.m. Says strategic satellite imagery and aviation data suggest that Russia may be preparing to test an experimental nuclear-powered cruise missile, or may have recently tested one with a theoretical range of thousands of miles. Movements of aircraft and vehicles at and near a base in Russia's remote Arctic region are consistent with preparations that were made for most tests of the missile, known as the Berezhnik or SSC X-9 Skyfall in 2017 and 2018, according to a New York Times analysis. It says U.S. surveillance planes have also been tracked in the area over the last 2 weeks, and aviation alerts have warned pilots to avoid nearby airspace. Russia previously conducted 13 known tests between 2017 and 2019, all of which were unsuccessful, according to a report from the Nuclear Threat Initiative, a nonprofit group focused on arms control and mishaps can be deadly. A missile launched in 2019 crashed and eventually exploded during a recovery attempt, killing 7 people, according to U.S. officials. It is exotic, it is dangerous in its testing and development phase, Daryl G. Kimball, executive director of the Arms Control Association, said. Whether the Berezhnik has been tested again since 2019 isn't clear, but even with a successful launch, the missile would still be years away from operational deployment. Mr. Kimball added, in previous tests, the missile failed to fly a distance anywhere close to the design range, estimated to be around 14,000 miles. U.S. officials assess that during its most successful test flight, lasting more than 2 minutes, the missile flew 22 miles before crashing into the sea. In another test, the missile's nuclear reactor failed to activate, causing it to go down only a few miles from the launch site. For a test to succeed, the missile's nuclear reactor would need to initiate in flight so that the missile can cover much more ground. According to the Nuclear Threat Initiative report, the missile is a second strike strategic range weapon intended to be launched after a wave of nuclear strikes have devastated targets in Russia, The missile could carry out a conventional warhead, but in practice will likely carry out a nuclear payload, albeit a smaller one than most other nuclear capable weapons. If used in wartime, the missile could have the potential to destroy large urban areas and military targets, experts say. While Russia has shared little about the Berezovsk's specific design, President Vladimir V. Putin has said it is nuclear powered. The missile is thought to be launched by a solid fuel rocket motor before a small nuclear reactor activates in flight, theoretically allowing the missile to stay aloft indefinitely. The Berezovsk is one of 6 strategic weapons, along with others such as the Kinzhal ballistic missile and the Avangard hypersonic glide vehicle that Mr. Putin introduced in a 2018 speech. He asserted that the weapons could overpower and outmaneuver existing U.S. defenses. Addressing the West, he said, "You have failed to contain Russia." So just before I finish reading these last couple, man, so Vladimir Putin pretty much let the U.S. know that nothing is going to stop these weapons. Their defense system isn't going to stop them. I'm going to bring that out in the scriptures, because pretty much it doesn't matter, what the U.S. tries to do. No defense system that they have or develop is going to be able to, stop these missiles from touching America. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's prophesied that America is going to be destroyed by missiles, so they can do everything they want. And even, I think it may have been, last month or the month before, I did a video on it. The U.S. pretty much is trying to develop a new defense system, but ultimately it's going to fail. America will be destroyed. It says visual evidence of testing preparation includes before and after satellite images. Imagery taken on the morning of September 20th shows numerous vehicles present on a launch pad at the base, including a truck with a trailer that appears to correspond to the dimensions of the missile, a weather shelter that typically covers the specific launch site have been moved about 50 feet. By the afternoon, the trailer was gone and the shelter was moved back to its original position. So pretty much, these are the photos of where they were moved. The vehicles and the shelters were moved. So, that's pretty much, all I'm going to read on this. So pretty much, again, Russia's still testing their nuclear weapons. Kim Jong-un, I'm sure he's still testing his. China as well. But these other nations are still gearing up for war. Meanwhile, America's doing what America do best, which is just being engulfed in folly. So, as always, I'm going to start in the book of Isaiah chapter 54 and verse 16. It says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals and the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy." So yes, ultimately, in a recent video I saw where Apostle Har was pretty much going into, the IUIC, breaking down the lake of fire actually correctly this time. But Bishop Nathaniel, when I forgot who was reading for him, brought this out, he mentioned Oppenheimer. Now, yes, from what Apostle Har said, you can't mention him, but ultimately it's these scientists, that the Lord pretty much gave this information to develop these weapons, because during World War II, you had Slovakia, a split. So, Russia took some German scientists, then the U.S. also took German scientists. So that's how, you have this nuclear arms race between Russia and the U.S. because of these scientists developing these nuclear weapons, J. Robert Oppenheimer is just, one of many, you know. And I'm going to go to the book of Job, chapter 20. And I'm going to start at verse 22. And it says, "In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. When he is about to fill his belly, Yahweh shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating." So yes, ultimately, the Lord isn't going to let Esau Edom fulfill his new world order. He's only going to let him get so far that ultimately he's going to take him out, Verse 24, "He shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. It is drawn and cometh out of the body. Yea, the glittering sword cometh out of his body. It's like it cometh out of his gall. Terrors are upon him." And yes, that iron weapon, that bow of steel, and that glittering sword, also, is known as a glittering spear, is going into these missiles, that are going to be launched during World War III, because they're going to be shot throughout the world, but the majority of them are going to hit America, These other nations are angry at America, and ultimately, they're going to turn on her. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, and I'm going to start at verse 1. And the headline reads, "Babylon judged for the sins against Israel," and that's pretty much what's going to happen. Babylon the Great is going to be destroyed for the sins that are committed against the nation of Israel, It says, "Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them, that rise up against me a destroying wind." Again, that destroying wind coming from those missiles, because once they hit their specific target, and it detonates, it's going to create a huge mushroom cloud. And then thus, that mushroom cloud is then going to, or the blast, not the mushroom cloud itself, but the blast, from that missile is going to send off, a wave of fire, that's the destroying wind. Verse 2, "And I will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her, and shall empty her land, for in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about." So all of these nations are going to ultimately be against America. Even America's allies, are going to turn on her and shoot their missiles over here as well, Verse 3, "Against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigandine, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts." So yes, America is going to be destroyed, It's going to be laid waste. This land is going to be completely desolate, after this destruction, Once that fire is done burning, it's going to be a desert, You won't be able to discern, which states were which, I'm going to bring that out since I'm mentioning it. And it's the book of Isaiah 34 and verse 11. And then, before I read this, this chapter, is pretty much giving a description of how America is going to look after this destruction takes place, This is the book of Isaiah 34 and 11. It says, but the cormorant and the bittern shall possess it, the owl also, and the raven shall dwell in it, and he shall stretch out upon it the line of confusion and the stones of emptiness. So yes, you won't be able to tell, where New York was, California, Texas, Michigan, these states, you won't be able to tell, where, these states were specifically, because that's how devastating this destruction is going to be, that you won't be able to tell, one state from another, because this land is just going to be completely desolate, And then this is a good chapter to read because it's also describing, the particular animals that are going to be dwelling in this land, because no man is ever going to inhabit this land again, America's going to be completely desolate. It's going to be a memorial, just like Sodom and Gomorrah. Slakia, Sodom and Gomorrah, just roughly paraphrasing the scripture, it says Sodom and Gomorrah was left as an example, of how not to live. And pretty much America is going to be left as an example of what happens when you live wickedly, when you pretty much live, the way Esau Edom is living, or pretty much how he's ruling the world. This man is ruling the world in wickedness. And ultimately, the Lord is going to, show the judgment for ruling the world in wickedness. Excuse me, Slacky. Is the book of Malachi, chapter 4 and verse 1. Says, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day cometh that shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch." So again, this land is going to be completely desolate. Those missiles are going to be burning extremely hot. They're going to burn hotter than the sun. So I'm going to come to the book of Joel, chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, "Blow ye the trumpet at Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains a great people and strong. There hath not been ever the like, neither shall any more after. It's like it neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth." Again, that rocket system that is propelling these missiles from one end of the earth to the other. It says, "The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness." So right now, you pretty much have these particular land masses, primarily America. You have these land masses that are intact, but once they hit, it's going to be a desolation. It says, "Yea, and nothing shall escape them." And that's the point. Nothing shall escape them. Nothing is going to be able to stop these missiles. People, won't have that long, because, it won't take these missiles long to pretty much get here. 30 minutes at the most, 15 minutes at the least, and that's not a long time. It's not a long time. It says, "The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses and horsemen, so shall they run, like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains. They shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array." "Before their face the people shall be much pained, or their faces shall gather blackness," because these people, they aren't going to know what to do, because pretty much they're going to watch their death coming, and they're just pretty much going to have to accept it at that point, because again, people are, it's one thing to know you're going to die but not know when, but it's different when you know exactly when you're going to die and you can see it coming, and it's going to be a terrible feeling for a lot of these people, especially those that receive the mark of the beast. Verse 7, it says, "They shall run like mighty men, They shall climb the wall like men of war. They shall march every one on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks. This is the point. Neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. So yes, Vladimir Putin pretty much said, in that speech, from a few years ago, that these missiles that he has, the U.S. defense system won't be able to stop them. And that's pretty much what this is talking about, Says nothing is going to stop them, even if they have, counter missiles or defense systems, it's not going to work. Whatever specific targets those missiles have, they're going to hit that target, So let's just say, for instance, it's a particular state, if, which they do, but, if they have a specific mission, it's like a missile targeted, to hit Michigan, it's going to hit that target, whatever they have, whatever defense system, even if they have, counter missiles that they're going to try to shoot to, stop it, it's not going to hit that missile and then it's going to explode in midair. No, it's going to bounce right off of it and keep going. Their defense system is ultimately going to fail. So they're pretty much wasting their time. Verse 9, they shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall. They shall climb up upon the houses. They shall enter in the windows like a thief. The earth shall quake before them. The heavens shall tremble. The sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. And the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great, for he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible. Who can abide it? And only the elect of the nation of Israel will be delivered from this destruction that the Lord is going to bring upon this earth, So we're going to bring out a couple more, and that'll be it. Slakia. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 7. In verse 1. Slakia. Revelation 7:1. And it says, after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. So pretty much, again, you have 4 angels holding back that destruction, because it's for an appointed time, So when that time comes, those angels are pretty much going to, let loose, and those missiles are going to start to fly. And then to back that up, it's the book of Revelation, chapter 9 and verse 15. And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year for to slay the 3rd part of men. So yes, there's a specific time, there's a specific day when these missiles are going to be launched, And then the 3rd part of men, you have 3 classifications of men. You have the sons of God, which are the Israelites, the 12 tribes of Israel, the sons of men, which are the other heathen nations, and the wicked, which would be Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. So ultimately that destruction is for him, and the other nations and the 2/3 of Israel, they're just pretty much collateral damage. But ultimately, the destruction is for Esau. Verse 16, and the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. By these was the third part of men killed by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. Slakia. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails were like unto serpents and had heads, and with them they do hurt. So yes, the part of the missile that does the most damage is the warheads, and there's going to be 200,000, ultimately 200 million warheads that are going to hit this land, And then it says when it has heads like lions, because ultimately when these missiles are launched, a lot of them are going to be launched into space, outside of the firmament, which is the ozone layer. They're going to get their specific targets, and then they're going to return to Earth. Their rocket system is going to be propelling them. That's the tail like the serpent. And then the heads like lions, there's going to be these warheads coming back down to the Earth, on fire, because they're going to be traveling so fast, And that's the heads like lions and, the tails like the serpents, that rocket system that is going to be propelling them, and the warheads being on fire before they hit, this land. So that's pretty much it. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I say Shalom.